Well, folks, welcome back to Two Down Territory. We are going to be tier list ranking all 32 NFL teams, grading their seasons. And as a Chiefs fan, I'm making sure that I'm extra prepared.
2 inches short, maybe less. Story of my life.
It's
Been a while since he's seen a hole that big.
If you say he's a bust and you end up right, it's not because you're some genius. It's because you got lucky.
How I feel, man? Tell me how I feel, El Freaky.
We pray that these bird 30s would nourish us and allow us to throw the ball.
They got to go get this bread.
If you suck, you might as well suck with purpose. And so... Oh my gosh. Well, yeah, so you can obviously tell that the vibe for us, me being a Bengals fan and Jonathan being a Chiefs fan, is at an all-time low whenever we're contemplating and looking back at the 2025-26 season. But
Unintentionally, we're both in black, which is very funny.
For our own funerals. Dude, next year is going to be our year, but we'll talk about that later. We're still at a period of time, kind of the twilight zone between, last season and then the off season coming up, where we're going to be doing some reflecting on the seasons and on the teams, and we're going to be doing a tier list. We've intentionally left a lot of the tiers blank because we kind of want, through our discussion of these tiers, it to take shape. So before we start, Jonathan, what are your initial thoughts when you're thinking about like putting teams in a tier list and grading their seasons?
Yes. So this is not a recreation of the standings, obviously. Now, in some way, it can be very much based off of that.
Yes.
But this is more so for me, and this is important for a few teams on this list. This is mostly about, for me, where they were entering the season and how the season ended up. So there's specifically one actual team that I have in mind where we're not taking it based off of how the vibes were halfway through the season. It's where they were to the start and where they finished. That has an impact. It's also something where I am... the end of the season vibes matter as well. And so a team that at the end, even if they were out of it for a bit, bumped themselves up in terms of vibes, and I like the nucleus, or for whatever factors that we can get into, they could be a bottom 10 record team, but they may not be a D or an F necessarily based on the vibes. Sure. And so that matters. And I am not factoring in necessarily new coaching hires into this. That's not something. It's fully encapsulated in this season. Now, weirdly enough, I will count mid-season or immediately after the season firings of head coach as a step in the right direction, but I will not give you points for who you hired to your coaching staff.
Yeah, I think that the only thing I'll add to what you just said is, for me, when I'm looking at these teams, I'm looking at the timeline of kind of the draft, give or take, until the end of the season, and everything that happened of their season, like their final game, and everything happened that after that, I'm not really factoring into it. Because next year, if we do this tier list again, that time period will be included in it. So I'm going to share my screen. Share.
I'm excited for this. This is going to be fun.
I think it's going to be interesting. And one thing we also intentionally did is I can edit the names of these tiers. So you're going to see just how bad at spelling I am. But we can kind of name the tiers as we go on. To start, I feel like it makes the most sense to kind of understand the extremes on each end. Do you agree with just putting Seattle at S tier?
Well, I was almost wondering if there should be a tier above S, where it's like, if you're the Super Bowl champion, here's my thought. If you were the Super Bowl champion at the end of the season, barring something where you win the Super Bowl, but on like the last play of the game, your entire team dies through the horrible accident, you're pretty much in a tier of your own. And so I'm almost okay immediately throwing a wrench into things and adding a top dog tier, which is Seattle.
I like that idea. I don't know if I can do that because this is not a template that I created.
Then they are in
unfortunately,
S-tier.
but I think that
they're
my
in our
thought
minds
was
and in
going
our
into
hearts.
this is just like Seattle's just going to be the only S tier team. The other thing too is that within the tiers, obviously there's going to be some wiggle room that probably won't be, showcased in terms of like the order that we put them in the tier per se, but like obviously like an A isn't exactly the same. That's why we're putting them in tiers.
Yes, 100%. So do we have a unanimous last place? That's what I'm curious about, Adam.
I don't know. I think there are multiple teams that I could think of. What are your thoughts?
Well, that's where I was wondering, because you said give the high and the low. Obviously,
Right.
we know what the high is. I'm not entirely sure who I'd have at the low. I almost kind of want to discover it along the way in my own mind.
Okay.
So I just say we go division by division, and that makes
Okay.
the most sense. Or we can go in the order that they're on the screen.
Let's go division by division. So, obviously we started with the NFC West, so we can go straight to the Rams.
Yes. The Rams, probably the best possible season that you can have in which your team doesn't make the Super Bowl.
I agree.
I mean, it's the closest bordering to being alongside the Super Bowl winner without being it. Obviously, you lost to them along the way. It just happened to be in your conference championship game and not the Super Bowl. I've been saying it all year. I think that Seattle, or not all year, but at least during the last half and third of the year, that these were the best two teams in the NFL. I happen to think the Rams were slightly better. I was proven wrong on the football field, but I think these two teams were right there.
I think that the biggest thing with the Rams is that just the season that Stafford had is obviously like just incredible. And the fact that we now know that he's going to be back for the next season, because obviously going into this season in the offseason, there was question marks about, Matthew Stafford's injury and things of that nature. And so the fact that he came back and won MVP and then is going to be back for next season, that this has to be an A.
Yeah, anytime when your quarterback is potentially, it's on the radar that, wait, could he retire? And then he wins the MVP, it's a pretty darn good season.
Yeah. Let's start with the let's go to the Cardinals then. So this is a really
3-14
unfortunate season.
Arizona. I mean, this is the team that is potentially viable for my worst team in the NFL. I don't see how you could do anything other than F.
I agree. I think for a few reasons. The first one is obviously now there's question marks related to the quarterback situation. When you leave a season with question marks with your quarterback, obviously that is one of the biggest factors to determine, how bad of a season like nothing really could be worse. I think also just the concept of having a new head coach, or firing your head coach at the end is another indicator of F tier. And then I didn't have as high expectations as you did for the Cardinals, but I did not think that they would be a 3-10 team. 3-10, that doesn't make any sense. That they would be
we're back in the 60s.
Yeah, that math was not good at all. But that they'd be a 3-4 win team. How many wins do they have?
3-14.
Yeah, there you go. So yeah, I think F makes a lot of sense.
I mean, it's one of those weird things where perhaps the only positive nugget on a macro scale that you can pull from the Cardinals season is the flip side of the quarterback question, because it's actually not really a question. You basically
Yeah.
just know now that Kyler Murray's not going to be the guy. And so in that sense, I think coming out of the season, there may be a handful of a good portion of the Cardinals fandom that had questions going into the season. Excuse me. Now
Bless
has
you.
closure.
Yeah. That's a good point. I definitely think that that's the optimistic approach, but for the sake of this tier list,
Oh, yes,
it's
it's
an
still
F.
an F.
49ers. This is an interesting one
This
just because this is a team that I think exceeded my expectations, obviously, preseason and in season, but yet I don't know, but like for some reason I hesitate a little bit.
because
What are your
here's the
thoughts?
thing, it's this weird area where B seems too generous and C
Yeah.
seems way too harsh. I like there's a hot and cold here where, I mean, we can just say it's one of those things where I'm personally the nature of the beast with this exercise is that injuries are factored in as being a bad thing. And so it's not like some rah, oh, we made it all the way to the playoffs and and we're fighting for the 1 seed at the very end, even though we were injured. It's no, you were injured and that's not good. And so
Sure.
I think that, but at the same time,
So
I don't know if I can go lower than
here,
B.
I think I'm leaning towards B, and it's because they won a playoff game. Like, that's telling to me. I think that if you're a team that preseason, there are question marks related to the moves that you had to make. I think that Brock Purdy at the end of the season proved just how valuable he can be. That's one.
Yeah.
B, I think that you see how good, once again, you see how good of a coach Kyle Shanahan is. And then C, the fact that they won a playoff game against a team that, had an infinitely better roster than them tells me that, like, and I know we're not supposed to be looking at the future, but this season, I'm a lot more optimistic on the 49ers than I was going into the season. And so I feel like it
That's
has to be
fair.
a B.
I'm entirely fair with a B. And to be clear, the bad taste left in my mouth from the 49er season is not because they got walloped by the Seahawks. I don't really care about that. And you're right. If winning a playoff game has to put them in a B, I just really don't like that they basically, even though they played their damned hardest to make it look like it wasn't, they did lose a season to injury with a
Yes.
franchise quarterback under contract. That's never good. But that being said, they had about as good of a season as you could while basically losing a season to injury.
True. Yeah. So
So
maybe
a
like,
B feels appropriate.
yeah, it's just closer to B than C. So, what
Yes.
division next? You want to do the NFC North? That'll be fun. We can just start with the Bears because
Oh,
they're next.
yeah, let's hop right into the NFC North. Oh, man. Chicago. Is it the most hope that the Chicago's had leaving a season since in our lifetime, Adam? I mean, we're not the
Probably.
oldest fellas, but
I mean,
this
that I can
century.
remember.
So,
I mean, other than when like they went to Super Bowl, right? Like,
yeah, but I mean leaving the season in terms of
yeah,
like,
that's true.
well, and I know that's not entirely how I'm framing it, but I also feel like, yeah, that's fair. I get that. But outside of the Devin Hester opening kickoff return, that wasn't exactly a pleasant Super Bowl for them.
True. That's a really good
Everyone
point.
remembers Devin Hester, Devin Hester's return. No one remembers the rest of that game. Yeah, I mean, it's an A.
I think
I
so
was
too.
trying to think of reasons to not put it there just to see if I could come up with any, but no, it is an A season.
I think if you leave the season, if you enter the season with without an understanding of your first overall pick and your coach and leave the season as firm as they are on those 2 points within their team, I think you have to be an A.
Yeah, and it's also something where, I mean, listen, if you threw in the context, they would still take it, obviously. If you told anyone that Chicago was going to win the division heading into the season, it would be hard to say it's anything but an A. And it
That's a
very
really
much
good
is
point.
an A. At the same time, I think once the dust settles, I almost kind of want to mentally think about the NFC North, because it did take a significant step back overall from 3 teams in to 1 team in. And funnily enough, the 1 team that was in this year was the 1
Yeah.
team that was out last year. And so, but they won the NFC North, and you know that Caleb at least has something there, and you know that Ben Johnson is like that guy. You're
Yeah.
going to give this an A. You have
Yeah.
to.
Absolutely. And, got to shout out the offensive lineman, the protector of the
Oh,
year, Joe Thuney, who they traded
protector
for
of
in
the
the
year, Joe
offseason.
Tooney.
Like, I think that if you include the offseason and just everything that they did to protect Caleb Williams within that offensive, specifically the interior of that offensive line, during the offseason, just, I think that you can't look at this season without saying that this was an A. Yeah, it was just an incredible season.
Yeah, I mean, the young guy coming onto the scene in the running
Exactly.
game.
I don't want to, be a downer. I do have question marks related to the Bears for next season, but that's a topic for a different video.
That's entirely fair. Do we go Lions from here?
Sure. So this is the first. It's the first team that because there's a couple of them where they came into the season with contender, as a contender, and left the season missing the playoffs. And so this is going to be important because I think this is going to determine exactly how, like, a big portion of how this list carries out.
I'm not Willie. I'm not going to stop myself from throwing punches. Just, I'm going to be honest. The gut reaction is D. It wasn't an F. It wasn't an F. But this is based on expectations. It has to be a D. You can't go from the previous 2-3 year stretch that you were building and then have this season. And it's not to say that, like, Detroit's little mini era of resurgence is over, but you also have to grade this fairly and give it a D, because that's what it was. I don't care if it's once again a question of the defense at the end of the season. But if the question of the defense at the end of the season in the previous years, you were still making, conference championship games and winning the division and winning playoff games, and you now miss the playoffs entirely based off of what it felt like you were building to, that's a D.
Yeah. The biggest thing for me when I'm looking at this tier list specifically is that this, in my mind, sets a precedent of how we want to organize the D and F tier. Because when I'm looking at the Cardinals, I'm looking at a team that, while they weren't contenders going into the season, like, by any metric, like, this is a team that's picking in the top 5. Like, they had a truly terrible season. Where the Lions are a team that was a contender going into the season and missed the playoffs. In my mind, we have to make a decision about which one of those types of teams are we going to put in D and which one we're going to put in F. For the spirit of this tier list being purely grading the teams that, or for the 2025 season, as well as the vibes leaving it, like, in my mind, it's so clear that the teams that just had objectively the worst season should be an F tier, but then right below them is when we start looking at the curve, or right above them is when we start looking at the curve, if that makes sense.
100%. And it's one of those weird things when you're talking about the NFC North, where it's like the Lions technically finished last in the division. They were 9-8, but they finished last in the division. And so it's just another little almost like bad taste in your mouth thing. This is definitely a D tier. It's not an F, but it's a D.
For sure. Yeah. The next team, I think that transitions into really simply putting the Packers at C tier for a few reasons why I think that they should be above the Lions. The first one is that even though early in the season, just because of how dominant the defense was, a lot of us didn't know how to factor in the Micah Parsons trade, and you were really high on the Packers. I think that the overarching view is that the Lions were more of contenders compared to the Packers. The second thing is, while injuries did impact the Lions seasons in a negative way, especially on the defense, remember that period of time where like their whole secondary was wiped out. I think that with the Packers, seeing the difference in their defense when they had Micah Parsons and when they didn't have Micah Parsons, like it literally went from like a top 5 defense to like a average defense. And so basically what my point is like, there's a certain aspect where while injuries are a negative, I don't view them as bad as like structural clear weaknesses that we see with the team. For me, and I said it all offseason and I said it all season, the biggest problem that the Lions had was just the shift in their offensive line play and the quality of their offensive line play, which was pretty easily predictable, where the Packers went from this team that was on pace and should have won the division to this losing streak that correlated directly with the injury to Micah Parsons when he got injured against the Broncos. So to me, they seem like a perfect C tier.
I've just listened to your argument, and ultimately, I guess we should say that the final tier list, if there are any arguments between us, will be yours because you're the man that controls them, and I have absolutely no power whatsoever. My gut reaction was to disagree with you and also put them at D tier because I think, and my argument is as simple as this. If they didn't make the Micah Parsons trade and everything else was the same, they would be a C tier because they actually made the trade. And then on top of him getting hurt, it's like, I mean, there was a period of time here, remember, and I'm not saying that you fully bought into it, and I wasn't all the way bought into it, but man, we were high on this team. The expectations were high. You just traded for Micah Parsons. You just traded for arguably the second best, at worst, the third best pass rusher in the league. But I get your argument as to why, at least when you're looking at it, they should be above Detroit. Like, if I was to frame it, it would be like Detroit's a D and, Green Bay's a D+, but I will concede the C tier to you.
Here's the final word on this that in my mind differentiates them. It's not just that the expectation was different because, that's subjective. I think that we should grade more heavily clear structural problems within the team as opposed to injuries.
Fair.
Like if it was one thing where the Packers, like we kind of saw basically what my point is we saw the writing on the wall because with the Packers, and also we have to mention the Tucker Kraft injury. Basically my point is that after that hot start, we began to see that this team really is just who they were last year with Micah Parsons. That being said, Micah Parsons made such a big impact that losing him because he tore his ACL, it's hard for me to discredit the Packers season as much as I discredit the Lions when going into the season, a big talking point, at least for us, was there are structural differences in how this offensive line is put together that really makes a big difference in the effectiveness of this offense.
Yeah, no, you are entirely correct. And that's why I said at the end of the day, Green Bay is higher on this tier than Detroit. It's just, yeah, I'm okay with giving them C. I entirely get your argument.
Perfect. That transitions
Minnesota.
directly into the Vikings, who I think personally could be the worst.
Ow. Yes, it's odd. It's really odd grading Minnesota because it entirely is based. It's one of those things where it's like, I would love to kick Minnesota while they're down and say, JJ McCarthy's not the guy, terrible season. The problem for me in terms of take integrity and the integrity in which I do this is I didn't think JJ McCarthy was anything at all going into the season. And because of that, personally, I don't know if I could give them an F because I already didn't expect much from JJ. At the same time, because they've committed themselves to JJ McCarthy, I will punish them.
Right. And so that's where I think the issue is, I guess you could say. Like, in my mind, the reason why they could be the F tier, I think the fact that Sam Darnold won the Super Bowl is a big indication, like, actually matters in this conversation. That's one.
Yes. Oh, that's a great
I think
point.
that
Yeah.
JJ McCarthy, the season that he had, not only raised concerns about his ability to play NFL football, but also his ability to stay on the field. So that's kind of 2 points. The final thing is, like, the positive of it is, well, Brian Flores didn't get hired, right? Like, so he's still going to be the defensive coordinator. They have him locked up for, presumably, according to his contract, a decent amount of, like, a long time, like, for the future. And even though a lot of the defensive pieces didn't play as well, by the end of the season, the Vikings defense, underrated storyline, but they were playing incredible. The example is actually when they played Seattle, where if it wasn't for, what was it, Max Brosmer throwing like 4 interceptions, like, that defense actually played incredible. The problem is, though, is that, like, for me, this is like a vibes based thing of why I think it should be, why you put them in F tier. Like, the fact that they let go of a quarterback and then chose a quarterback who barely played, and when he did play, played awful, had zero aura, and then the quarterback that they opted not to pay went on to win the Super Bowl. Like,
can we on the fly rename the F tier? Because it applies to both of these teams to aura-less.
Yeah, how do you spell that?
Aura, A-U-R-A. Adam can't spell, folks.
I'm bad. I have dyslexia. Is that right?
Yes, correct. Very good.
Yeah, no, that's what this is. It's like, it's a team that, like, they just pain, despair, and agony are the terms that come to mind when I think about the Vikings.
If we could create a second team, and I don't necessarily fully believe this, I don't actually think they're the worst, but just based on personal dislike, if we could create a tier below it and just call the tier 9, that's what I would want to do.
Right. No, here's the other, and I have more to pile on. The fact that they made all those changes in the offensive line and we basically got to see those in effect for like half a week, like, that matters. Like, we talked about how injuries are a negative at the end of the day. The fact that Justin Jefferson couldn't make JJ McCarthy look like a functioning quarterback in the NFL is a problem.
Big problem.
Right? Like, and, you know, I think people are over exaggerating based on the season that Justin Jefferson had, you know, talking about how, oh, look, Puka and JSN has overtaken him, yada, yada, yada. Like, obviously, from a skill perspective, I do think that Justin Jefferson is still probably the best wide receiver in the NFL. But what that did tell me with Justin Jefferson is that there is a floor of quarterback play. And obviously that's true with every wide receiver, but I think it's accentuated by the fact, just like the type of wide receiver, like the archetype of wide receiver that Justin Jefferson is. Like, he isn't you know, 10 plus catch or reception, yard after catch type wide receiver. He's more of a traditional wide receiver 1 when you think about it throughout NFL history. And so because of that, that makes me nervous for 9, JJ McCarthy and the Minnesota offense as a whole. I just think that the vibes could not be lower when it comes to the Vikings.
Kevin O'Connell better get to whispering
Yeah.
is basically the thing, because and that's the thing is those narratives JJ McCarthy gets one season. That's what he got. He got his one first season starting, not his rookie season, but he didn't start he was injured for that rookie season. But if he doesn't perform next year, then two narratives are going to be coming to a head. The J.J. McCarthy narrative and the Kevin O'Connell quarterback whisperer narrative. And guess which one's going to win? Kevin O'Connell being a quarterback whisperer, which means the J.J.
Yes.
McCarthy will be out on the streets.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
So that's the NFC North, folks.
What do you want to do next?
Why don't we keep it in the NFC and go the NFC East?
East.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can start off with the Eagle or the Commanders. Man.
It's not F. It's not orless.
I don't think so either.
The Commanders were not orless. But when you go from making it to the conference championship game in the previous season and having arguably the greatest rookie season of all time from a quarterback perspective, and then you're exiting the next season legitimately, and again, it's one of those things where I don't like to talk about it. You want to knock on wood every time, but it's what the nature of this is. You have to talk about Jaden Daniels' long-term ability to stay healthy at his frame and size and body type and all of that. When you leave the season wondering whether your guy can survive long-term, and on top of that, the season was also brutal, it's a D tier. It's not an F.
Yeah, I agree.
Because it's still a young nucleus and you have that guy. And it wasn't like, it certainly wasn't the previous season, but when he was playing, it's not like it was downright abysmal. And so I can't give them an F based simply off of that. But it's about near the bottom of the D tier.
I'm just going to say what everyone's been thinking. Jonathan, shut your mouth. If you agree with me, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and share this with someone so that they can hear how stupid Jonathan sounds. I think what this season has shown me when it comes to Jaden Daniels is that, and I think that this is the right way to look at the season, his freshman, like his first rookie year, it just shows how incredible of a season he had. Because by all measures, the Commanders, with the moves that they made, should have been better this year. The fact that, and one of the reasons, shout out to us, my biggest faller coming into this season was the Commanders, because one of the big things that I noticed was that this wasn't really a good roster. And yet, through the power of Jaden Daniels, we saw what this roster could, or how he could pull a roster to an NFC championship. And so basically what my point is that yes, it does raise concerns about the injuries, and that's valid. But I think when I look at this season, I see he was injured for a lot of it, and he just didn't play as well as the year before. That is going to happen. That is a given when it comes to quarterback play and really every position. To know that at the very least, this quarterback has a season like his rookie year where he can take a roster like that to the NFC Championship, in my mind says that we should only be more invested in this quarterback. Because, everyone has short-term memory loss. Everyone is going to, long-term memory loss. Everyone's going to look at this season and say, Jaden Daniels, look how bad of a season he had. Look at all of the injuries and everything like that. For me, this just shows how incredible of a rookie season he had and what he was able to do. In my mind, they can't be an F tier for that reason.
That's entirely fair. Yeah, I 100% agree with that. I think that's the Commanders. Unfortunate for them. Now, the Dallas Cowboys are a very interesting one.
Mm-hmm.
My expectations of them may have been higher than others, and so that will slant into this. It's not as bad as Washington's.
Yes.
We have to say that, because I don't care. I'm not a Cowboys guy. I don't even think I'm a Dak guy. But dang it, I guess by default I have to be a Dak defender because some people are just ridiculous. Like, yeah, I get it. He's only won one playoff game or two playoff games. But man, oh man, he's a good quarterback. And
Oh, yeah.
so I think when you look at the other portions, like with how atrocious this defense was, but then finding themselves somewhat at the end of the season and kind of building back up the run, the vibes aren't as bad as a D. I want to give them a C.
I 100% agree with that. I
Okay.
think that
Okay.
a few things. Like, obviously, they didn't have the season they wanted. Part of this is because my expectations were pretty low for this team. But the biggest thing is, first off, what this team did is, and obviously starting with the Micah Parsons trade, we talked about that a lot whenever it happened, and about kind of the malpractice that took place. But I think a few things have been solidified in my mind. First off, I think that Schottenheimer is obviously a good head coach, and that decision to hire internally paid off because his offensive scheme benefits Dak Prescott. Like, this was one of people are not going to realize it, but this was one of Dak Prescott's best seasons, specifically with his ability to perform under pressure. The offensive line played terrible this year. Like, it was really, really bad. And it was because what happened is they only have a few good pieces, and those pieces got injured. I think that Javonte Williams having a season like he did is impactful. They were able to run the ball on the offense. They were great. George Pickens was able to solidify himself as a wide receiver, had one of the best seasons in the NFL. Obviously, CeeDee Lamb was injured, but we know the type of wide receiver that CeeDee Lamb is. In my mind, this offense is really close to being a top end offense in the NFL. Obviously, the defense is questionable. I think that, the pickup of Quinnen Williams was a good move. And I think that, people aren't going to talk about this because they like to crap on the Cowboys. And I don't really like the Cowboys, but they were injured a lot of the season. And, it's not a coincidence that when they started to make, kind of show some noise come together, it was directly correlated with their secondary getting healthy. So,
yes. And they did. And they had some impressive wins this season. It's not a B, but it can't be a D. I think another factor of this is also, and again, they didn't make the playoffs, so it's like if there's an Eagles fan in here, they're going to be like, oh, who cares? They had the best divisional record in the division.
yeah.
They went 4-2. No one else did better than 3-3. So it's like Dallas still knows how to win within this division. They have the offensive pieces there clearly. They did throughout the season. The offense was humming for a good portion. I mean, it eventually cooled off somewhat, but any team that had peaks as high as they did is going to cool off eventually when they have to carry that defense. I think a C tier is appropriate. I actually liked a lot of what Dallas did this season.
Well, and again, you got to think about the year before. Like, it's not like they're coming off of a playoff run. Like, no, like they were bad. Dak Prescott got hurt. Like, that was their D season. They are making moves in the right direction overall.
Yes, 100%. Are the Giants orless? That is the question.
I think that because we're talking about the season and not the moves afterwards, I would put them in that tier.
Yes, agreed. The only reason to bump them out of it is because of the in-season firing of their head coach. But I can't give them points for that actually because the way that they handled it was kind of weird.
Yeah.
And so, like we said, we're not awarding anything for the hiring of Harbaugh after the season was over. Overall, the Giants outside, and I guess really the main factor that would pull them out of this, and it's really, I guess it's more so that they don't fit the name of the tier, is Scatterboo.
Yeah.
Scatterboo almost single-handedly, just by being fun and himself, nearly pulled them out of this, but then him getting injured, it's like you lost the one piece of aura you had.
Here's the thing. The optimistic side of this is you could say Jackson Dart performed well. Like there were times when Jackson Dart, like his game against the Eagles was a great, like he legitimately played really good football. Scattaboo.
He played really good
Great
college
piece.
football. I don't know if it was great NFL football.
No, it was great
but
NFL
fair.
football. Like no,
Maybe,
it was.
maybe.
That I'm talking about one game here. Like give them something.
Fair,
The issue is that when you look at the way that Cam Scattaboo and Jackson Dart play, the first thing that comes to your mind is how sustainable is this? And the fact that Jackson Dart got concussed 6 times and Cam Scattaboo like broke his leg off, it's like, well, okay, all of a sudden the only plus you have becomes a negative because the worst case scenario happens.
Yeah. Yep. Mm-hmm.
You know, like it's hard because also Jameis Winston is on this team, so it's hard to put them in aura list because he's like the king of aura. But
God, I love you so much, Jameis Winston.
exactly.
That's the other
But
thing. The
unfortunately,
Jameis Winston one game. That, who was it? Was it who was
forgot who
Jameis
they
going
played.
toe to toe with? Was it the
I
Colts
forgot.
when the Colts were kind of?
it might have been, but like he had a Jameis Winston game. It was awesome. He remembered that
Yeah, he
touchdown.
had a
He caught
Jama
the
game.
pass.
No, that's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about that game specifically. I can't remember who it was, but yeah, I'm sorry. It's an aura-less season. Sorry, Scattaboo and Jackson Dart and Jameis Winston.
Eagles, I want to hate.
Philadelphia. I want to hate. I want to hate. I want to hate, and yet.
No, I want to hate. I want to put them in D tier.
Yeah.
Like I don't care. Here's the thing. Like once again, everything that this like and you know this is different than the other teams where it's like these are, you know, potential contenders who miss the playoffs because they made the playoffs. This season showed to me just how unstable of a locker room that Nick Sirianni produces. And like you were on this train basically from the beginning of his tenure with the Eagles. I wasn't. This was the final straw. Like the cycle repeated again, that as soon as he makes a wrong choice hiring a coordinator, the season goes to crap and the locker room explodes.
Yes. And again, we've said this a million times, so we won't have the full discussion. But if Sirianni doesn't actually call the plays and team management has told him he can't call the plays, and so the thing that he does is hire coordinators, and then those coordinators, if they do their jobs well, are poached away, and then one of the new hires comes in and underperforms, then what's the one thing that Sirianni or a head coach in general has to do to be a good head coach? It's manage a team in a locker room. And if that sucks, then what the hell are you doing?
Yeah, like I almost want to put them in Orioles. But like
I
it's one of those
simply
things,
can't.
we can't.
Like,
we can't.
I
We
have
can't
too
keep our
much
integrity. Yeah.
Yeah.
Here's the thing though, because like think about like the juxtaposition between the Eagles and the Lions this season. Like you have two teams who have incredibly stacked rosters who 100% underperformed. The Eagles obviously made it farther. The difference is though that I think is a lot more impactful is that you saw at the end of the season when the Lions were fighting for nothing, they went out there and they put their heart on their sleeve and they played team ball and they beat the Bears in the final weeks of the season. Purely because of the locker room presence of Dan Campbell. That in my mind is just so much more impactful because even though, you know, they ended up firing John Morrison, their offensive coordinator, after Ben Johnson left, the fact that their head coach definitively adds value outside of the coordinators compared to the Eagles, whose head coach detracts value when he makes the wrong choice. And at this point, he's kind of basically 50-50 in whether or not he makes the right choice. Like he hired Shane Steichen and then, you know, he went off to become a head coach. His next hire didn't work out. Then he hired Kellen Moore. He went off to be a head coach and then his next hire didn't work out. Like that is not a recipe that makes me excited about the season or the team.
Yes. I think the reason that both of those teams, even though it's completely different vibes, even out in D tier is at the end of the day, Philly did win their division and make the
Yes.
playoffs, and Detroit was technically last place in their division and missed the playoffs.
Right.
But the vibes are what even those things out, and also based on the expectations, both of those teams are in the D tier.
Yep. All right. Next is the NFC South.
Oh boy, can we put them all in Orlis?
Yeah. Right.
Not actually. I think well, let's start off with the Buccaneers.
Yeah.
Ah,
This feels like a D to me. This is that category of team.
it's that exact same category as, in fact, as unfortunate as it is, because they're like the anti-Bucks for me in terms of like I don't have allegiance to one of these teams. They're not in a conference that I care about as someone who's a fan of an AFC team, but I just have an instinctive warmth in my heart towards Tampa
Me
Bay.
too.
Outside of when Tom Brady was there, of course, the devil himself.
Yes.
They got him out of there fast, thankfully. I mean, he did win them the Super Bowl, but who's counting?
Yeah.
I think that they are shockingly similar to the Eagles in terms
Yeah.
of vibes and the way that the season went. And it's different because Todd Bowles, unlike Sirianni, does actually do something, which is the defense. But in the same token, he also doesn't do it well a
Yeah.
lot of the time. And
Yeah.
so it evens out into this sort of the head coach you have immense questions about, the quarterback you were feeling good about going into the season and had a letdown of a season.
Mhm.
And then on top of all of that, you just kind of peter out at the very end. Obviously, Tampa petered out by missing the playoffs, whereas Philadelphia petered
In
out
the funniest
sneaking in the
way
funniest,
possible.
yeah, in the funniest way possible, Tampa. But yeah, in fact, most all of the analysis, broadly speaking, of Philadelphia can be applied to Tampa.
Yeah, the two things that I'll add is that one, this is a team like history and context matters. This is a team that won the division like 4 or 5 times in a row,
Yes.
right? And then missed the playoffs. But the second thing that I'll add is that it's similar to the Giants in that all of the things that you could say that would bump them up a tier really at the end of the season turned into a negative, because with the Buccaneers, the storyline was this is a team that is winning close games because of the clutch running ability and escapability of Baker Mayfield in the pocket. So the question is that going to run out? When you looked at the underlying base numbers, like a lot of stat nerds were saying, these are not good numbers to hang a season on. But there was also the context of this is when they were the most injured. The problem is that as they got more healthy, they started losing more.
Yes.
So this is why
Really
they have to be in the D tier, because the only thing you could say that was a positive was it's not really their fault. They were injured. They were missing their wide receiver core. But that ultimately was a negative because they ended up becoming worse when they got healthy.
Yeah, and they're not they can't be Orlis because they won far too many games.
Yes.
Even though technically Minnesota won the same number of games as them, but it's far different vibes in Minnesota overall, and there's reasons for that. But it's also Baker Mayfield. No Baker Mayfield quarterback-led team can be Orlis.
Yes.
But it was a really tough season for them.
Yes.
It's
100%.
a D tier. And
Right.
if anyone's curious, maybe we could without recognizing it. Adam and I were both relatively high on Tampa Bay heading into the season,
Oh,
and so
yeah,
that
we were
factors
very
in as
high.
well. There's a lot of people who, if they don't care, we're weird people and we enjoy the NFC South. We talk
Yeah.
about the NFC South at a disproportionate amount compared to other people, probably, and
True.
so that factors
True.
into this.
Listen, I think, and this transitions into the next team, the Falcons. I have some steamy hot takes related to how I think their season is going to go next year. But as far as grading them this year, I C feels right.
C feels well, it's hard because I do not know what to make of the fact of as soon as they were mathematically eliminated, they became a top 5 NFL team.
Yeah, sure.
Like,
True.
that's weird, and so I don't know whether to make of that, like yeah, that's just it because it wasn't just
This
like,
is
"Oh, you're mathematically eliminated, and then you win the last couple games of the season." No, they were mathematically eliminated, like,
true.
6 weeks out and then
Because
went,
of
like,
the
4
weird
and 2.
tiebreaker thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because of a weird tiebreaker thing where they were locked out of the playoffs with 6 weeks to go, and yet they just went on this hot streak, and we can't factor in the new coaching hire as much as
No.
I would want to, but
I
still,
think
without factoring that in, I think it's a C.
one thing we have to mention that is obviously a negative is the whole situation related to the draft and how they traded their first round pick last year
Oh,
or for
yeah.
this year to the Rams to acquire James Pierce Jr., who obviously he hasn't been sentenced, but it's looking more likely than not that he's probably not going to play football anymore. And so that obviously
Yeah.
matters. Here's the thing. People do not understand the storyline for the Falcons this year that I think is the most impactful is the aspect that Bijan Robinson added an element to his game that is the ability to catch the ball out of the backfield. But he didn't just add it as something he can just sprinkle in here and there. Like, it is now a huge strength of his. Like, Bijan Robinson, in my mind,
Excuse me.
this season transformed into the most complete running back in football.
Yeah, I mean, it's up there. It's a legitimate discussion. I think with that factor of Bijan, I still I don't know how to grade it into because I can't project long term. That's not this exercise. But the quarterback questions are really tough, though. C feels appropriate. It's a low C, but I don't know if I could go as low as D just considering
we're grading
the
on a
way
curve,
that they looked. Yeah.
and even though there's questions obviously related to the quarterback, the biggest thing, again, this is another big thing and a big key to this. Their defense at times looked like a top-end defense in the NFL. They straight up stopped the Bills. They beat the Rams. Like, they arguably beat, a top 3 team in the AFC and, a top 2 team in the NFC. Like, the Falcons were bipolar, all of these negative things. And obviously we can't take this offseason in this, the series of events that happened afterwards into account. I just feel like if we're grading on a curve, like, at least for me, they didn't have, like, nowhere in my mind did I have an expectation that they could actually put together a game where they beat the Rams and the Bills.
Yeah. No. For that reason alone, I think with those other factors, C is appropriate. How in the world do we grade the Panthers? Because the gut reaction is to, like, call it a B based on pure expectations.
I think for me, I think we don't need to overcomplicate it. I also think it should be a B. I think that when you have a team that was, with the recent history that they have and they make the playoffs, it doesn't really matter the circumstances. I can't fathom a world in which they're not a B. The other thing, though, the reason why they're not an A, however, is because even the Bryce Young is still a question mark.
That's the thing is it's like kind of everything on that team is still a question mark, with the exception of the run game.
Well, and I again, it's in my mind, it's as simple as the floor for a team
you're not wrong.
like them
You're not
is a
wrong.
B, and then what makes them hit that floor is the fact that Bryce Young is such a big question mark. We have to talk about Tet McMillan. He obviously played incredible. He won Offensive Rookie of the Year. It was, he stole it, but that's besides the point. He still won it.
We're about to discuss that.
Exactly.
The one thing I'll say, and that's why it is a B tier, and because I can't factor into this discussion, but I worry if long term this season will turn into a fool's gold because I've seen so
Yes,
many teams
100%.
do it, where there's a chance that this will be in the back of the GM and the ownership group's mind, and they're going to give Bryce Young a second contract when he might not deserve it. And
I
that
think that
scares me for them.
I'm not going to go as far as to say that like I'm predicting that this is a fool's goal season, but I do think that if you were to envision the perfect scenario that would take place for a team that is not that good to make it to the playoffs, the factors that you would take into account is inconsistency, it's high ceilings and low floors, and inconsistent quarterback play. And then the biggest thing is winning in a terrible division.
Oh, the biggest thing is being 500 below 500,
500,
in your
right.
division.
Right. Like that is, this season feels almost perfect for that. Like the fact that they
Yes.
beat the Rams and lost to the Saints. Like a team that does
Yes.
that on a pretty, like they beat the Packers, right? And then, you know, lost to whatever team. Like they lost to the Cardinals. So it's just like, it's,
Yeah.
But that's not the nature of this. We have to take into account the grade, the expectations. I never imagined in my wildest dreams that they'd be a playoff team, and yet here they were, so they have to be a B.
100%.
Now we can talk about the Saints, where things could get crazy.
Are the Saints an S tier? I hate to be the one to say it, folks.
No,
I'm going to be honest. As much as I want to meme into bit, what are you about to say?
I feel like I can reason my way into A tier.
Good Lord, make the case.
Okay, because if we're grading on a curve, this is a lost season because of their cap space situation.
If we're talking about Saints A tier.
Listen. Here's what I'm saying. We were obviously incredibly low on the Saints going into the season for a few reasons.
Lower than low.
Like worst team. We had a bit that wasn't a bit of us. Every time we predict the Saints, we're going to predict them to lose the game. That completely flipped on its head as soon as Tyler Shuck started playing. Here's the thing. This is a lost season in time because of their cap space. Like that's the reality of the situation. Like this was a team that was heading into the season with the worst situation possible. If you were to ask me at the beginning of the season, what situation would have to take place? Like what's a realistic season that could be the best possible situation for the Saints after 2025, 2026? What I would tell you is that this team would be picking, between like 5 and 10, like they would win like 5 or 6 games, that Kellen Moore would solidify himself as a good coach and head coach and locker room guy, that Chris Olave would show signs of life again, and that Tyler Shuck, their quarterback that they picked in the second round, would clearly show enough to be able to confidently say that we need to try this out for another season. Because the reality of their cap space situation, for those of you who don't know, is that they're not even in a position to start a rebuild. Like
no,
this
it's
is
not
not
even
a team,
like, the window hasn't opened yet. It's like in the weirdest of ways, it's almost impossible to fathom. The original Drew Brees window hasn't even closed yet.
Right. Exactly.
Financially. That's how bad it is. It's getting close.
Basically, what my point is if the context of this season and even next season is that this is a team that has 2 years to prepare for a rebuild, the season they had this year is the best realistic situation they could find themselves in.
Adam, this is our podcast. Put the Saints in the A tier.
Am I wrong? Like, if
you're
we're
not.
grading
No,
this
you're
on
not.
a curve, like this isn't standings. Like we're adding context to the discussion. The
Saints had an A season.
Yeah, like
yes.
I truly believe
they
that.
Did.
Like I
did.
think that's real.
I'm kicking myself because it's like I think the exact same thing, and I was like, no, I can't be ridiculous and put this. No, they objectively it was.
Because there are teams like the Jets and the Titans where it feels like even though financially they can, and they're in a great position kind of to start a rebuild, like this year was not like adding to it. Like it wasn't like they took the next step from like bottom tier rebuild team into like mid-tier, win a few games, and then the next season you can see maybe, they start getting in a wild card spot. Like the Saints are not even at the Saints have completely changed how we should view rebuilding. Like they have lowered the bar to a point where it's like, no, like they haven't even started the rebuilds. Like they can't even do that yet. Like they are beneath, like they've transcended the rebuild in terms of like
next
like
year is
lowering
officially
the tier.
the start of like the kind of rebuild.
Like next year is when their cap space situation finally like kind of closes. Like I'm talking about like 2027 season is when we're really going to be like judging them using the same grade book that you would for every other team in the NFL.
Yes, 100%. Yeah. No, you're right. Based on that context, it was an A season.
Like literally, like you could not envision a better season for the Saints, understanding where they were as a team. Like this was the only realistic, like this was the top end of realistic outcomes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So yeah,
you're
I think,
absolutely right.
Well, it looks like we're halfway through, and it's time to jump into the AFC. What division should we start with first?
I say that we start off right with your Cincinnati Bengals sitting there and hit the AFC North.
Let's do it. I think the quick question that we have to have is, what was your expectation going into the season for the Bengals?
To be honest with you, and I'm not trying to mess around, my expectation was pretty much exactly what happened. Joe Burrow was going to get hurt at some point, and the defense was going to be bad. Jamar Chase was great, and the combination of Chase together with
T. Higgins
looks very good. It just objectively does for an offense, even when you have a backup quarterback in. Because of that, I have a hard time putting it's certainly not horrorless. It can't be.
No.
The question is, for me, is between the C and the D.
Yeah.
I'm leaning a C. I'm leaning the C based because of my expectations were not as high.
Yeah. I think that's fair. I think that I do kind of think that's fair. Obviously I had higher expectations for the team. But I do think that if we're being honest, like I like to be optimistic about my team. Like when I'm looking at it, obviously the Joe Burrow injury hurts, but there were a lot of young pieces who showed promise, like we saw. And the optimistic approach to this season and what is keeping me together is the idea of the Bengals made a choice in the offseason that we're going to fix our defense through the draft, and we're going to fix our defense through young guys. And that's basically been the philosophy for the last 3 years. We are still in that little small window where you can say the verdict is up, or like the verdict is in the air. Like there are question marks as whether or not that was the right choice. I lean towards that was not the right choice, but we'll see. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like,
yeah,
you could still like somewhat say that it's a young defense and, maybe guys are going to start figuring it out. Like it's still in that window of some of these pieces could have that breakout year that you want them to have. And DJ Turner just objectively did have that breakout year. And so
for me, the defense is not as nearly relevant to this discussion. What's relevant, and the thing that I was thinking about having it being dragged down to a D tier, is that Zach Taylor is still coaching the team after all of it. But I'm feeling generous to you, Adam. We are going to go C tier.
And here's the thing. I think when I'm looking at the difference between C and D, it's all based on expectations. Like I'm looking at D tier, and those are all teams that made the playoffs and had and like had those types of expectations. When we look up outside of the Packers, C tier didn't make the playoffs last year. And so their expectations are just not as much, you know?
Yeah. No, I'm with you. How do we feel about the Browns, and why is it orless?
Oh, it's because it's the Browns, dude.
Because it's the Browns. Do we even need to have the discussion?
I mean, no.
I mean, not all, and I'm not even necessarily saying that I disagree with the firing, but the Browns are the only team that can be the Browns for so long and have so many bad head coaches, and then they fire a head coach and be like, I actually don't know if they should have done that. That's the Browns. Only they could conceivably do that.
This isn't obviously part of the discussion, but just the whole situation with Jim Schwartz and just like how that whole thing, like the whole process of them hiring a head coach was just so funny to me that, and I'm sure we'll talk about it more later, but just like every time I heard a report when they were trying to pick a head coach, it just got worse and worse.
Yeah. It's orless. We don't need to discuss that much more. It's the Browns. They were never going to escape this tier. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Ravens? This feels like a D tier. Like this feels like they fit the mold of all these teams.
They fit the mold of all of those teams pretty much perfectly.
Yeah. And then Steelers.
Steelers. No. I was going to say, I really think, not that we want to skip over Baltimore, but it's like amalgamate pretty much everything we said about the Lions, the Commanders, the Eagles, and the Buccaneers, and then it spits out the Ravens season perfectly.
Yeah, exactly.
The Steelers are a much more interesting discussion because it's entirely encapsulated on this one season. The positives of this season are making the playoffs with Aaron Rodgers and just the personal enjoyment of seeing one last Aaron Rodgers playoff appearance. The offense actually seems to have pieces that I like even beyond the Rodgers portion of it, because who knows what's going to happen there. The biggest thing is the defensive concerns, but it's also, I think it's a C. The Steelers are a perfect C.
I think so too. I mean, well, that's the Steelers. They're mid. Like that is the definition. Anytime you rank the Steelers in anything, they will always be the middle. They are the mean. Like they are.
The difference with the Steelers is whether they're going to have C+ seasons or C- seasons.
This
was probably closer to a C+ season.
They are the Hawks of the NFL.
I hate you so much for saying that, but you're not wrong.
The context is that Jonathan's a Hawks fan.
The context is that Jonathan hates his life.
But yeah,
Jalen Johnson is the truth, brother. That's all I have going.
Keep telling yourself that.
All right. Okay.
No, that's actually
how
true.
are
He's
the
a great player.
Celtics doing? I don't know. What are the Boston Celtics? Some great franchise? Have they won a bunch of championships?
I do think it's funny because just objectively, in terms of like how we like growing up and just everything like that related to sports, like I favor football so much more than like, and you favor the NBA so much more than me. And yet my team is like a perennial dynasty in basketball and your team is the dynasty in football.
There's a universal karmic balance somehow there that I don't possibly understand. I couldn't, but I mean, the last championship that we won is when our team resided in the city that I currently live in of St. Louis.
True.
The last time the Hawks won a championship, they were the St. Louis Hawks.
True.
Anyways, this is an NFL tier list, and the Steelers are mid. That's the important part.
Yes. All right. How about the AFC East. We can start with the Bills.
The Buffalo Bills are.
I don't know. This
Oh.
feels like a C, maybe? Or
The
do we want to
argument
give them
for
a B?
C is that the reason that they lost in the playoffs and their season ended was like the worst nightmare scenario of like the return of Josh Allen turnover mode.
True.
And it adds just another knife in the heart of the Josh Allen fan club. And Mahomes was not even in the playoffs. And so I lean C. And they lost the division for the first time in,
Yeah.
I mean, goodness, since Brady retired. And so,
I'm with you.
yeah.
I'm with you.
Or since
Here's
Brady
the
left
other
the
thing
Patriots.
too. From an offseason perspective, like the question marks for the Bills are always, how does their depth look on defense? And on top of that, do they have a, like a good wide receiver, outside wide receiver? They thought they did. They were clearly wrong. Brandon Beane has not managed this team well, and I truly believe that. And we saw the ramifications of that in this season. And so
Yeah.
for me, I feel like it has to be a C. And like, I hate the take, like, oh, well, the Chiefs aren't in it, so this has to be Josh Allen's year, because I think it's just simplistic and everything is more nuanced. Just because the Chiefs weren't in the playoffs this year doesn't mean that the teams in the AFC were like
That's
worse. Like, there were some really
fair.
great teams.
And to be clear, I wasn't fully saying that. I do think it matters somewhat in the context of it's building upon the last 7 years of
Yes.
NFL football, and that kind of pressure cooked into this moment of, wait, all of a sudden we're here and Mahomes is out of the playoffs, but we didn't even win the division. We're on the road and we lose in the divisional round. Like, there is more nuance, but at the same time, whether you're nuanced or dumb with the Bills, you get the same result, which is
Right.
coming up short.
Listen, I think that it is a perfectly valid take for First Take and ESPN, but for people who actually want to have serious conversations about football, it's not particularly a conversation that I want to have. But yeah, no,
You're
I think that
talking
the Bills are
about
perfectly
future United
C-tier.
States President
Stephen A. Smith.
Stephen A. Smith. Oh,
Oh
God.
my gosh, dude. Anyway, we can move on to the Broncos.
Not my president.
I
Not
feel
my
like the
take.
Broncos. Oh my gosh. I think the Broncos have to be A tier.
The Broncos have to be A tier. I hate it. I despise it to the core of my being, but there's no other way of saying it. I mean, the Broncos, again, had just about as with the weird exception, but it doesn't get included in this. I actually dislike it so much, and yes, I am biased, that if I was able to factor it into this discussion, I would bump them to B, which is the Sean Payton, Bo Nix quibbling about their... That's weird stuff that we need to talk about at some point. Like, not just like NFL tabloid drama. Like, that was legitimately odd and concerning going forward. But from the season start to the season's end, this was an A season for Denver.
I think that what this season proved, like, I think that what we saw was the floor of Bo Nix. You might not agree. That's kind of what I see. If the team around Bo Nix is so good that when he hits his floor, that they win the AFC, like, it can't be anything below an A tier.
Yeah, 100%. No, I'm right there with you.
Awesome. Well, let's talk about the Chargers, because I think they're B.
But
I really do.
Here's the question: how much of the injuries are you factoring in? Because I think if I'm being consistent with my injuries are still a bad thing and aren't like a positive, I'd lean closer to C.
Mm-hmm.
I lean closer to C just because of, once again, how the season ended with another Justin Herbert playoff dud and all of that. I get that the offensive line was terrible, but it's like, we're not talking, this isn't a ranking of Justin Herbert, this is a ranking of the team, and the offensive line being so terrible, even if it's because of injuries, is a part of the season.
100%. It definitely is a part of the season. But the reason why is because in my mind, and I understand that injuries are a negative, it's just like, even if they are a negative, like, this is a team that, by all, like, even if we're grading on a curve based on our expectations, I do think we can take into account our expectations mid-season. Like, this is a team that should have fallen off of a cliff. And this is one thing I want to say, and this is kind of going back to the MVP discussion of everyone basically crapping on even just the idea or the thought that Justin Herbert could be win MVP. Obviously, I disagree with it. But people who haven't watched the games do not understand the magnitude of how bad the Chargers' offensive line was.
Yes.
Like, we're not talking about like, oh, they're probably like the worst offensive line in the league. Like, this was legitimately like people pulled off the street. Like, there were multiple people or offensive linemen on that team that did not have a team when they were on a team were bad, and they were the only options for the Chargers.
Yeah, no, like, it was something to where it could have been conceivable for, like, SEC high-end pass rushes to get pressure on that offensive line.
100, like,
And
I truly believe that.
And I'm someone who truly, I don't say that willy-nilly because I understand the difference of level between a pro player and a college player. That is legitimately true.
I'm looking at this season, and this solidifies to me the floor of Jim Harbaugh and the ability of Justin Herbert to play in terrible conditions. And so for me, when I'm looking at the Chargers season, while I understand that injuries are a negative, I can't get out of my mind that I think that this is a team that is competing for the AFC if Joe Alt stays healthy.
Put him in beats here. All right.
Like,
Okay.
I just, I don't know. I truly believe, like, I think that I am so high on the Chargers going into next season. Obviously, it depends on the offseason. They have a crazy amount of cap space, ironically, but
yeah.
We can talk about the Chiefs really quick. D, right?
Brother, this was F.
You think so? You think Orioles?
Adam,
Yeah,
this is
right.
where it comes in. Like, this is a team that made 3 Super Bowls in a row, and they went from not only breaking their winning the division streak, they missed the playoffs, and then on the last drive of the game, when they still had a glimmer of hope for the playoffs, their quarterback tore his ACL.
That's true. Yeah, you're
It
right.
doesn't
was
really
pretty bad.
fit the Orioles title, but it was an F. It was a bottom tier season. I can say that. Like, there's no, but like this isn't me, like, being negative about my own team in like, I'm anti them. This is like, my expectations are higher than this. Like, sorry, I've had a taste of the good life. I've been sipping on the champagne for a while. And it's not like, like, I had to wait an extra little while before, the waitress came around for a refill. It's like a homeless guy came off the street and shanked me.
I was wondering how you were gonna complete the metaphor, and in 100 guesses, a homeless man coming and shanking you would never have crossed my mind.
That's what I wanted to make this. That is what this was the equivalent of. Like, you're sitting in the nice restaurant. I've been there for a while. The drinks have been flowing, and then a schizophrenic man comes off the street and sends me to the ER.
You. Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't say behead. There's still a pulse. Mahomes is here. Andy Reid is still coaching.
Hey, he's a dog. Did you see how quickly he got his surgery?
I hate you. That was like a take for 12 hours on Chiefs
and there was
Twitter.
not a lot of people. It's just like, it's one of those things where even though that was a take that was like small in terms of how long it existed, as well as who was actually pushing it forward. It was just so massive in how idiotic it was that I can't let it go. Like, that was legitimately one of the dumbest things that I've ever heard someone say, like a fan base say.
You're going to be thinking of that like 5 years from now. That
I
take
really
is going to
am.
stick
Like,
with
do you
you from how
remember
much
that
you
time?
despised it.
It was so, it pissed me off to no end. Part of it is because of my own like bias and jealousy. Like, let's be frank, because in this season, Joe Burrow actually did performed like a medical miracle in how quickly he came back from a grade 3 turf toe and toe sprain. But like, it's not just that. It's also that it's just incredibly like, just small brained, but whatever. Do you, is that all? Is that the AFC West?
No, I mean, I think I made my point about the
Raiders.
Chiefs, which is where
Yeah,
our
I agree.
expectations are high enough to have a season like this very clearly be at the very bottom of the tier.
Good.
We're good. We're good.
Okay.
As long as that's there, as long as we're there with them in hell, I'm fine. That's how I am with the Raiders. I actually, legitimately, I want you to know this. The rivalry that the Chiefs have with the Raiders is the closest thing to like a college rivalry in my mind, where like, I don't care if we stink, actually. As long as they're there with us, I will drag them down to hell myself. I'm fine with this.
I can't wait for your bias to influence your Fernando Mendoza takes.
The Cuban Missile Crisis. It's going to be difficult.
Such a great
I mean, can we
nickname.
deport the man already?
That
Like,
is
just
such
save
a
him the trouble.
Oh my gosh, dude.
But no, I mean, legitimately just looking at this, like the Chiefs and the Raiders at the bottom tier, I'm getting nostalgia because that was just my childhood. Just us duking it out at the bottom of the standings. No, legitimately, I'm getting childhood memories right now.
It's true.
Of like Matt Castle.
It's like
era.
comforting.
Chiefs. It is. It is comforting, actually.
Oh my gosh. How about the Colts? This is a weird team.
I like how we just broke the going by division standpoint for the AFC.
What? No, we didn't. We finished the AFC West.
Well, we started on the Bills, and then we went immediately to the AFC
We
West.
totally did. I forgot. We did not. I didn't even pick up on that. We completely ignored the rest of the AFC East. Anyway,
but
to
no,
the AFC South we go.
The AFC South. This was the team that I had in mind when I said I am counting this by my beginning of the season predictions, not where they were halfway through. It's still not good. It's a C, but it's not, well, it's a C, and then you throw in the horrific trade for Sauce Gardner.
The trade coupled with the listen, this is similar to the Vikings, where I could argue
they're not
that
they're not Orless.
This is the worst season imaginable for the Colts.
I get the argument. I really do.
It's pretty similar to, remember when we did our video, like ranking quarterback situations?
Yeah. Yes.
Like, just like think about the season that the Colts had. Like, let me just make my case. So the Colts started off the season with Danny Dimes coming off the failure that is the Anthony Richardson pick. And they started hot. They were a top team in the AFC. I was drinking the Kool-Aid. I called them contenders by like week 5. I was totally bought in. I thought that their offensive system made sense. I thought that Shane Steichen was doing great. I thought that their scheme was incredibly QB friendly, and that's why Daniel Jones was doing incredible. Their offensive line was playing top end. Jonathan Taylor was offensive player of the year, and Lou Anarumo was doing the same thing he always did with veteran experienced safeties and corners on top of a good enough pass rush and veteran good pieces on every single level of the defense. And then Daniel Jones tore his Achilles. which created this situation where they went all in for the next 2 seasons, giving up their first round picks, putting them in a win or go home category. If they do not win the Super Bowl, this year was terrible. They're not going to win the Super Bowl.
Just a moment of your time. Liking, commenting, and subscribing is the best way that you can support our mission to get the good word out that Tyler Shuck is the second coming. You're not wrong, and that's a fantastic argument for having
We can put them in
near
D.
the very bottom.
We
I
can
would
put them in
prefer
D.
Let's because here's the thing. Let's split in the middle and go D, because the argument for me is very simple, which is I thought they were the third best team in the AFC South heading into this season, and they were the third best team in the NFC South or the AFC South.
Mm-hmm.
Like the contention is with all the bumps and hiccups along the way, it went exactly how I thought it would, mediocrely.
Yeah. Here's my thing. The Daniel Jones, if we were going to categorize the things that could happen to Daniel Jones that impact how good, like that impact the Colts, like very
Execution
selfishly.
by firing squad, drawn and quartered, Iron
Yes.
Maiden.
Every other injury is on top. Next is death. And then finally is torn Achilles.
Yeah.
Like, and I was about to say a sentence that I don't want to say just because it's terrible and inhumane, but the truth of the matter is that they are going to pay him a good amount of money this offseason. And who knows how he's going to look off a torn Achilles.
Were you legitimately about to say that it would have been better for the Indianapolis Colts as a franchise if Daniel Jones was dead?
No, that's terrible.
That's
Oh my
horrible.
gosh.
We
I was
almost
trying
can't put that
not
out
to
there.
say it, actually.
I'm sorry. You know me. I would have said that anyway. You throw a couple more of these in there.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, man. But yeah, no, I think splitting it in the D tier is fine because at the end of the day, even though so much of it got eradicated and the combination of the first round picks being seemingly lost now, I do think it is worth still saying that they did still acquire Sauce Gardner, even though I think it was a significant overpay. It's like they have Sauce Gardner on their defense now, and I like a lot of that offense except for the quarterback.
And the biggest thing is that a lot of what I just said really does impact the offseason more than the actual season that they had.
Yes, 100%.
So, I'm with you. We can move on to the Jaguars. I feel like this is pretty simple, right?
This is an A.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yep. I mean, did the playoff game go perfectly? By no means. But it's one of those things where even though it ended on a Trevor Lawrence pick, in the moment, I thought that it would sting harder, but it didn't. Like, I still think that I'm generally exiting the season optimistic about Trevor Lawrence. And of course, I'm all in on Liam Cohen. And so I can't say this is anything but an A tier.
My analysis to start the season for the Jaguars was they were one of my highest graded teams when it came to their offseason. A lot of that had to do with the hiring of Liam Cohen because I thought that he could be the most influential head coaching hire from last year's cycle. Liam Cohen proved me right 100-fold. My immediate, purchasing of all of his stock, I'm a
Coach of the Year
majority. Yeah, I'm a majority stakeholder in the Liam Cohen's.
You're on the executive board of Liam Cohen's.
I am. And so basically
you've got
my
a
point
conference
is
call
paying
after
dividends.
this that you got to catch.
Exactly. It's paying dividends. And so my point is that I also think that I don't really see any negatives, to be honest with you. Like what I saw from this team and from Trevor, and the thing is, my analysis with Trevor Lawrence was that this season should be viewed as not this shouldn't be the season we use to determine his career.
No,
he could have had the worst season of any quarterback in the NFL, and I still would have said we got to give it one more year.
Well, okay, but I get your point. I do get your point.
No, I'm not being facetious and over exaggerating. Like, I truly believe, like my whole thing was like, this year is about him getting accustomed to Liam Cohen, and the result doesn't matter. Next year is when the result is the thing that should determine, what the Jaguars do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, every single possible thing that you could have asked to improve from the previous season did improve
100%.
this season. Every feasible thing. If that's the case, it was an A season.
Yeah, absolutely. All right.
The Texans. B tier. This is a classic B tier.
I agree.
This is a classic. They overachieved in many ways because of the offensive line. At the same time, the offensive line play, and a little bit towards the last third of the season and the playoffs, the questions about CJ Stroud definitively keep me from even considering this being an A tier and puts it kind of on a lower B tier, but it's still a B season. It's above average.
You put this Texan season in C tier if you believe that the question marks related to CJ Stroud are not attributed directly to the offensive line play. If you are correct, which we are, that they are directly contributed to the offensive line play, and that you saw this coming from a mile away, and that when you looked at the offseason, you knew that they said, our weakness is the offensive line, let's make it worse, then yeah, like this is the season that they had. Like I was going into the season with the idea that maybe they'll make the playoffs because they could win a weak division. They didn't do that. Like they were a top end wild card team. Like they were the 5th seed. So
yeah,
and it was off the back of just like an incredible defensive performance. And so I think that you can't put them lower than B. The only way you would is if you think that CJ Stroud isn't the guy in Houston. And I think that you can't make that determination when you have an offensive line like that.
I'm not in that camp. I think I probably have slightly more questions about CJ than you do, but I'm definitively in the camp that I can't get any read on CJ when the offensive line is playing like that.
That's my point. I'm not coming up here and saying my point is that we shouldn't make determinations about CJ Stroud. Like I think that when people react generally with their analysis to NFL seasons, they look at it and say that we have to make a determination right now. Like all I'm saying is that the question, like there should be a, like an asterisk over CJ Stroud's name. Like we shouldn't look at the way that the season ended and be like, oh, CJ Stroud, we're done with him.
Oh yeah.
We also shouldn't say CJ Stroud, clear-cut franchise top 10 guy. Like it's okay 100%. For us to say, we don't know where he is. I know a lot of people don't do that, and people probably don't want to hear that, but that's okay. Like, yeah, I don't know how to view CJ Stroud because the conditions he was playing in is not a control conditions. Like, if this was a double-blind study, like, he wasn't in the control group. He was in the group where he was, like, if this was like a pharmaceutical trial, he wouldn't have been given the placebo. He would have given, like, they would have given him the pill that, like, gives him symptoms. Like in a hypothetical situation where it's like, this fixes the problem.
Yeah,
this doesn't do anything to the problem. This is the secret pill that kills you. Like that's what. Like this is arsenic.
No, we're adding a fourth group. You. There's full dose, there's half dose, there's placebo, and here's where we actually give you cancer.
Exactly. Like we're gonna just like point like radiation. Like we're gonna get a radiation, like an X-ray, and just take like 20 X-rays of you every day.
We're gonna send you through the X-ray machine like 100 times.
We're gonna try to give you superpowers. Like
maybe that's what the 49ers are doing with that electrical station that's right next to their practice facility.
They're like,
that's one of my favorite NFL theories. So it's total BS, but I love it so much.
Just like every player is like a number, like trial 105 is gonna give some guy's gonna sprout wings on the NFL field.
Yeah, like John Lynch, he's playing the long-term game. It's like, oh yeah, everyone else trying to win this season. I'm trying to create the X-Men. And I've already got a quarterback who has the perfect name, Mr. Irrelevant.
True.
Oh my goodness, what a storyline.
Okay, we can move on to the Titans.
Oralist.
Yeah.
Despicable.
Here's the
Oralist.
thing.
They're more oralist for me, and because I'll say this right now, and again, you can make all the arguments and the case, and here's the thing, you might be right technically, because, you use analytics and you like to wait to see how the cards fall. I'm ready to be out on Cam Ward. I see the writing on the wall.
Yeah, no, you kind of explained exactly how I feel about Cam Ward entirely, which is that I do think that there are underlying things that are a positive, and I think that it's too soon to tell. The reason why this is oralist is because what this season definitely proved is that this is the worst roster in the NFL by a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Like, they have no Jeffrey Simmons. They don't have nobody. They have a few guys, but it's just like
L'Jarius Sneed.
Sure. Like, okay. Like, this is like the
Let's not
Yeah, like, this is a bad
multiple-time Super Bowl champion, L'Jarius Sneed, buddy.
All right, my bad. My point is that, like, even though Cam Ward, like, showed some signs of life, didn't really have that good of a season, like, you can take that out of the equation and be like, this has to be an oralist team because that roster is just so darn bad.
I mean, at least they have Derrick Henry. Oh, wait.
Wait
at least they have A.J. Brown.
A.J. Brown?
Oh, wait.
Wait a
Well, at
minute.
least
No,
they
but
have
they
Mike
do have the
Vrabel.
coach of the year, right? No, they let him go too. Sorry, Titans fans. That was kind of rude. That bit that we just.
Hey, but at least you got a new stadium.
Exactly. Oh, new rebrand? Let's go.
Come on.
Bro, I'm not going to lie, dude. This modern wave of graphic design, of like minimalistic designs, I'm not a big fan of.
Yeah, you're telling me. I despise it. But
I think that the Titans did a good job in terms of leaning into the colors that I think are the best.
I mean, yeah, but
in terms of the
like,
rebrands.
You have baby blue. Of course you're going to lean into baby blue. It's like that's not, I'm not giving extra credit to the graphics design team for that one.
For just so happening to design it, a logo with like one of the best colors.
To have colors that were chosen before you were born. Well, the Titans are a young franchise, so maybe not, but still. We move on to the final three AFC East teams after we separated them from the Bills.
We just randomly decided for no reason at all to just ignore them until now. The Dolphins. Why?
I was legitimately caught off guard.
This is thinking ASMR.
This is
contemplation ASMR.
Is it oralist? I want to say oralist, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I think so.
I think you have to.
Yeah, no, this was a terrible. Like, this was
they
again,
won far more games than I thought they would. But because my thing is entirely based on my predictions before the season. I thought this would be one of the worst teams in the NFL, and they actually won a surprising amount of games.
Yes, but look at the company they're in.
Oh goodness, yeah.
Like, here's the thing. Like, this is a team that. Now we know that they're starting the rebuild, but similar to the Browns, like, they're kind of stuck because of the cap situation.
Oh,
and
goodness.
Not only that, like, the season just like went terribly. And now they're like fully committing to the rebuild. They released Tyreek Hill, which was obvious. They released Bradley Chubb. Like, this is a team that knows that like they were
when
going
we get an
nowhere
answer
fast.
on Tua.
I know, right? It has to be.
I think that
right?
they would. Well, I think that they're going to keep him because cutting him would just absolutely destroy them. It's like $55 million dead cap hit.
I guess,
and you can make the case
is...
for why you should, and just bite the bullet. But I guess they're trying to say, hey, one more season, new head coach, it's a rebuild, and then we're basically probably going to cut you in the 2026 off or the 2027 off season.
Yeah.
I guess
True.
that's the plan. But anyways, that's not relevant to this.
Let's say hypothetically there's a team out there that would trade for him. Does that make sense? Because they
Who?
would still.
I'm willing to have this discussion. We can pause right now and have this
Tua.
discussion. Who?
Like
Who's going to do that?
Oh, I'm not. I'm just saying hypothetically. I can't.
Oh no!
I think it would be a
no.
terrible trade.
Okay.
Oh, but you want to.
Well, I was going to say, do you think there's anyone that out there? We've got the teams in front of us.
It'd be funny if they did a 1-for-1 trade with the Cardinals.
That would be hilarious. Yes,
but like, I don't know. No. I guess actually,
to me, the only two that jump out as being hypothetical, and you really can't if you're one of them. The one that makes the most sense, even though I would still dislike it, it's just relatively the most, is Pittsburgh.
Yeah. Oh, I hope that happens.
You would love that. And then I can also see an argument for Atlanta.
That's actually a team that I was kind of saying.
You have him with Bijan. And you've got the weapons around him that are short game, intermediate weapons to where he can get the ball out fast. I'm not saying that the Falcons should do it, but that would hypothetically be the best alternate fit.
They could have like a 3-man rotation, like every week a new quarterback starts, just on a cycle. Like that's the move. Like
no, screw it. Let's bring back the idea that was briefly tried out in like the 40s, where they're like, we're just gonna play multiple quarterbacks a game, and we know we are. It'll be a different quarterback every drive.
Here's a better way. It could be like a Pokemon game. Like choose your Pokemon, and every single week a new quarterback comes out there. Keeps the defense on their toes.
Yeah. You don't know.
Kevin Stefanski is like choosing his like
outfitted with helmets on the sideline.
Exactly.
Like, who's going to come out there?
Who's going to play? Who's going to play? We don't know.
Because the scouting report would be drastically different for all three of those guys: Penix, Cousins, and Tagovailoa.
I mean, theoretically, like all of those guys are guys that you would say probably can't survive a full season. But could they survive a third of a season? Probably. Don't even try to have like backups. Like just fully commit to this reality of like, yeah, they're probably gonna, like let's just every week we'll put out a new quarterback.
It'll only cost $150 million.
Hey, there's always a catch to a great idea.
To a fantastic idea.
To a brilliant concept that no one can.
I like how we've put off talking about the Jets.
Yeah, I mean, Orioles, right?
Orioles. They did get an interception all season. It's one of the historically worst seasons of all time.
Yeah, literally. And
not just because of that, but that statistic kind of just encapsulates it.
I feel so bad for Aaron Glenn.
No,
because we'll see.
I think he's good.
Because here's the thing. There's two forces at work where you have Aaron Glenn and the front office, and both of them have different goals. And this is something that not a lot of people are talking about.
I'm sorry. There are two forces at work, Adam. There's the Jets and there's the football gods. And the football gods have decided before it was written that the Jets will suffer. There can be internal fighting within the Jets as well, but that's purely because of the will of the football gods. But anyways, continue with your actual analysis.
On a serious point, is that the Jets are in a really, really good situation for the future because of the draft picks that they acquired during the trade deadline, as well as the cap space that they have. Like, it's not crazy for the Jets to make a determination that we're going to once again not like sacrifice the present, because I don't like the term tank, and I think that a lot of people associate it with something different than I'm talking about, but sacrificing the present for the sake of the future. Like, I think that this is another season where they could take that approach and it would make a lot of sense, especially given the quarterback situation, because it feels like this every year, but this is, again, one of those years where it's like, this year the quarterback situation the quarterback draft is weak, but next year it's going to be great, where they say we're going to put off this season so that we can heavily invest in the draft next season. And it's not just quarterbacks. That's true for the entire draft. And so The problem is that Aaron Glenn, and if bad ownership makes quick bad moves without any foresight, there's 100% a world in which they do that. Aaron Glenn is then thrown under the bus and he gets fired after a bad season next year. And, so there's these two opposing forces at work in the offseason.
Yeah.
Is it where it's
you're not wrong.
There's one part of it, the front office, who could say like, hey, actually, we don't care about this season, where Aaron Glenn's job is riding on it.
Yeah. I notice that we've sort of bookended this tier list with Seattle to start and their Super Bowl opponent, the New England Patriots, to bookend it. I mean,
I feel like this is simple.
Is it an S?
Okay. It could be, right? Like I think it
so
would make sense.
Obviously an A.
A, right? Does it go to the okay? I feel like it has to be, because we're grading on a curve here. Let's look at the actual reality of the situation, because people were saying that, oh, it's unfair. They're frauds. They shouldn't have made it to the Super Bowl. They had an easy schedule. All of those things can be true. But the fact of the matter is that at the end of the day, this is a team that went 4-13 2 years in a row and made it to the Super Bowl in their third year off of an MVP type performance and season from their quarterback and an incredible coaching job that led to Coach of the Year by their newly acquired first-year head coach. Like, this is...
Yeah, they went from 4-13 to making the Super Bowl. Their coach won Coach of their Year. Their quarterback was the MVP runner-up, and they had a fantastic defense. This is an S tier.
Listen, this is the reality of the situation. While obviously Seattle is above them, right? They won the Super Bowl. If looking at the context going into the season, after last year, Seattle would have been a C, maybe even a B, because they exceeded expectations and they had Mike McDonald. Last season, the Patriots would have been oraless.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Right? So the fact that they went from oraless to Super Bowl contender to going to the Super Bowl is just as impressive as a team going from C tier.
For the sake of integrity, I probably would have had them in D, but it's still entirely fair. Still much more of a jump than Seattle.
So, yeah, I think we once again have created the perfect tier list.
We have to do one important thing.
Okay.
Because one, I think we can make the case for it, and I really just want to kind of mess with people who skip to the very end of the video if they click on it and just want to see how the tier list ends up. Put the Saints in the S tier alongside Seattle and New England, because there is a case for it.
100%. No, they're really, people are not going to see the vision, but it's just like, yeah, no, like the Saints, once again, it's about the context of the situation and the reality of it. They were not a team that could win a Super Bowl. They were not a team that could win the playoff, that could make it to the playoffs. This was a team that if they weren't picking first overall, it'd be a miracle.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like, they have positioned themselves.
Reaction right now. Give me your gut reaction right now. Who is the worst of the worst this season? We need to actually answer that. Even if we can't visually show it, I need you to tell me who is your most oralist.
My gut reaction, and this might be surprising, is the Vikings.
Fair.
Either them or the Browns. Dude, I hate the Browns. It brings me so much joy in my heart to see them down there. Although, that being said, there are it depends on how you're looking at it, but you kind of convinced me with your Chiefs speech.
That's what I was going to say. For me, it's between like the Chiefs and the Titans.
The Raiders were. Here's the thing, the Raiders too, just because like we actually did have somewhat of an expectation on the Raiders.
Yes. Yeah, no, the Raiders, I mean,
like outside of the Chiefs
so
and
happy.
The Vikings and the
it
Cardinals,
makes me so happy.
The rest of the teams in this tier were all teams that like we expected to be terrible. You know what I mean? So like the question is like,
Yeah.
so which is worse? The teams that we expected to be terrible and were terrible, or the teams that we thought would actually have some life and just crapped the bed?
No, in terms of the grading on a curve, I don't think it's close that it is the Chiefs, as sad
Right,
as it is to
exactly.
say. For me, if it's just pure filth, I would say the Titans,
Sure.
with a
don't know, man.
close second to the Raiders.
The Raiders lost 2 games this year when their opponent scored 30 and they scored none.
No, I know, and that's why I'm saying that's the odd way of this, because the team that I'm saying might be the most oralist is the team that did that to the Chargers, or to the Raiders, that is.
True.
And so that's the weirdness of this curve, but you are correct.
Either way, we made a perfect tier list once again.
Yes, if you can really tell when you look at the top and you see New England,
Saints.
Seattle, and New Orleans.
Yes, exactly. We really have come full circle on the Saints, I will say.
Yeah, if you are skipping to this exact moment, you do need to like actually listen
Understand
to
the
our reasoning
context.
why, because there is reasoning.
It exists.
We are smart. We know ball.
Yeah. Well, anything else? I think I'm good.
I think that's all, Adam. I think the only thing to do now that we have the Saints in S tier is for the folks at home to go watch the completed Tyler Shaw 2025-2026 NFL season
Yes.
highlights compilation on YouTube, which is available.
Absolutely. Oh, my dog.
I've fallen
just
asleep
walked
to
into
it
the room.
multiple times already.
Here's the thing. You want to watch another, and like, I'm not trying to add another player, but I've been doing some research and looking at former MVPs.
Mhm.
Earl Campbell.
Oh, man.
My, the mix of speed and power in that era, it was absolutely beautiful. Watch some Tyler Shaw highlights, and then that was loud. And then,
I'm sorry.
you know, if you're watching this at night and you need one more video to go to bed, look up some Earl Campbell highlights. But probably don't do that because it's only going to get you juiced up and excited. It's actually probably the
What
worst
a
thing you can
shout.
watch.
Yeah,
Campbell, man.
no. Go
What a
watch
dog.
Tyler Shaw to wistfully go to sleep as you watch a
6'2".
beautiful man, and then wake up in the morning to Earl Campbell.
To Earl Campbell. 6'2", 235 pounds. His speed, his vision, just incredible. But also, before you leave, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. We appreciate all your support, and we'll see you guys later.
Peace.